Good afternoon. This is Tanisha Laverne Grant with BlackInAmerica.com, and I am super excited to bring to the platform today none other than, multi-hyphenate, actor, comedian. This man is going to go on to do great things, Mr. London Brown, best known for his role as Reggie on Ballers. The character nobody could stand. I don't even think Reggie could stand himself. How are you today, London?
Everything is everything. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I didn't like Reggie either initially, but I'm glad people love to hate him. So that because it kept me employed because the character was interesting enough. So that works for me.
Well, that's how you know you're doing your job as a thespian too, right? You look at that character on the page.
Right. People would come up and would apologize for not liking Reggie, but I wasn't offended. You weren't supposed to in the beginning, so it was cool for me. Like I said, as long as there was interest in the character, then that allowed me to work and stay present. Because initially, Reggie wasn't even supposed to be in there long enough to be hated.
Wow, that is.
So I'm glad people didn't like it. It was cool. It kept me working.
You know what, London? Let me ask you this. Were you a comedian first and then became an actor, or were you always like actor comedian? You know what I mean?
Well, it kind of work hand in hand. Professionally,
go ahead.
Professionally, I started theater first.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. I started theater first, but being funny is one of those things that it's kind of always a part of you if it's what you do. So it's not like I did theater and then all of a sudden decided, I should try to be funny now. Like the funny was always existing, even though I was doing theater first. So, but I also started telling jokes in church. I remember like as early as like 14, 15, impersonating people around, in the church and stuff like that. But theater, I would say professionally, the acting started first.
Your impersonations are like out of this world. I mean, you rival like Jamie Foxx, because Jamie is an impersonating fool. When I heard you do Denzel, wait a minute. I heard you do Denzel, and all I could do, I kept taking it back. I'm like, this guy is amazing.
I'm okay. But I mean, I've heard Jamie Foxx does some really great ones as well. And there are a couple of cats that really do them. I do the few that I do. I do probably more unfamous people than famous people. But Denzel, I don't know even where that came from. Maybe just watching so many of his films. And like doing voices is like it's like a vocalist. Like certain when I hear a voice, you can kind of tell if it's in your register or not. Right now I know that.
Wow.
As a sidebar, there's like a Jasmine Sullivan challenge going around, which is a lovely run. But some of them people they trying to do this run, but their voice, it was not, what she's doing is not in the register. So, but it makes them sound bad. So as a person who can kind of hear some voices, every now and again I hear a voice. If it's distinctively different, then sometimes I'm okay. I know some people that are some beasts. I'm okay, but my Denzel, I think, is all right. It's all right.
Yeah, that Denzel is fire. That Denzel is fire. Like I said, I'm like, what? Let me rewind that one more time, and then it became 2 more times, 3 more times. You really nailed him. You definitely nailed him.
Thank you. I tried to make sure that
exactly.
If I do a voice or two, I try to make sure I put all I have into it and make sure that the voice is that is good. Boom.
Boom, boom. There you have it. Denzel Washington is one of the greatest actors of our time.
Yes.
Hands down. When you think about his body of work and think about, what you want your future, the future body of your work to look like, what is a role of a lifetime? Like, what does a role of a lifetime look like for you?
I don't know. I mean, because there are a few projects that I would really love to do, or type of roles I like to do. Like, I'm still waiting on a good Love Jones to do. I remember Martin did a good thin line between love and hate, which is grounded in reality, even though he was funny, and there was some, and it was some serious drama in it as well. I like what Chris Tucker did in Dead Presidents.
I gotta go back a little bit, because it's interesting that you pointed out Martin's thin line between love and hate, because from my research, I understand you have an affinity for older women, and Lynn Whitfield's character in Thin Line between love and hate was definitely, this older, sophisticated, seasoned, seasoned, that pretty much, seemed a little unattainable for Martin's character. So what is this affinity that you have for older women? I'm curious, London, like, what's that about?
You know what? When I talk about it on stage, I say older, but really the idea is just mature. There's a thing that I realized that in general with mature women, they just move differently. Like, for example, their gifts are different. Like, I remember one time I dated this younger woman, and she gave me for Christmas like some socks, cologne, and a tie. And I was like, that's cool. I guess, I wear it at a funeral or something like that. But I remember I dated a mature woman, and she gave me, like, for Easter, she gave me like an Easter basket of some stuff I really needed. Like, had like some Icy Hot, and some tequila and transmission fluid. I was like, how you know that I had transmission fluid?
She gonna keep you oiled up. She gonna keep you like together in your body and make sure your car is moving. That is
all of that. It's just the mature women they just move differently, a lot more poised, very posh, and together. Because sometimes I'm just not into people that are very high strung, too much energy. I'm real chill, real clandestine. I'm very low key. So I just feel like mature women just understand it already, because they've been there, done that, and they grown and they cool. And let me go into this. It's like sometimes in general, I'm not saying specifically to me, but in general, a guy would talk to a young lady, and sometimes women in their 30s, sometimes they still are not quite comfortable with what they want, because they are trying to protect this idea of who they are. So they're interested in the guy, they want to be with the guy, but they're too busy trying to be astute. As opposed to like a grown woman or a mature woman, sometimes she already done been married, her kids already went to school, they grown, they in college, whatever it is, and she's able to say, listen, I would like to have, if the guy approaches her, they exchange numbers, they go have dinner, everything is clear, it's not a lot of drama. She don't feel like, oh, if I sleep with the guy too soon, he gonna think I'm like this. They grown, they like, listen, I want this, you want that, let's move forward. And it's just less drama sometimes. And so that's all it is. It's not even necessarily an age thing, but mature people
in general. I'm glad that you've clarified that, because that definitely goes both ways,
Yeah.
Because I meet men in their 40s and 50s, and I got to tell you, some of them are very immature, So it really goes both ways in terms of it's a mindset. Maturity is a mindset more than anything. So I want to get back to these roles of a lifetime. You talk about doing something like a thin line between love and hate, a Love Jones. If there was like an icon, living or deceased, that you would want to portray, who would that be? Have you ever given any thought to that? First of all, I got to say, this brim that you're wearing is everything, my man.
Oh, man.
Woo! That's
man,
people
they don't appreciate it, man. My whole thing is that our reputation is based on our consistency. So for me, along with being very kind, and a few other things, I feel like I want things to be associated with me, and being put together is one of those things for me, because again, I don't know where this interview is gonna land. So
it's global for sure. I do.
So that's my thing. It's gonna be in London somewhere. It's gonna be in the States. It's gonna be.
It will be in London.
There you go.
It will be in London, London.
Come on, somebody. So for me, I just want to make sure that I'm always, the least I do is, because when we dress well, we feel better. Our energy is up. A lot of times people, all they do is walk around in sweats all day and torn t-shirts, not groomed and not cut up, and their energy is that way. And I'm not. That's not my vibe, man. I just want to be, put together, and I respect you. That's why part of it as well. But to your question, I have thought about, so well, first, thank you for just even acknowledging, my brim and everything. I appreciate that. So to your question, I've thought about playing there is, it's slipping my mind, not Stokely Carmichael, but James, he's an author. I think maybe James Baldwin.
Oh, James Baldwin. Ooh. James Baldwin is heavy,
James
man.
Baldwin. James Baldwin. Yes, I really like his whole demeanor, and so he's so calm, and he's very relaxed, and then his whole little thing. So I don't know. Maybe at some point, I'm telling you, I don't know. I think he's in my register, and I just appreciate him as a writer and just as an activist and everything.
So we talked about you portraying the great James Baldwin. Actually one of the great activists and revolutionaries of our time. Would you ever think about just, putting a quick, maybe 1 minute or 2 minute scene up, of you as Baldwin on like YouTube or on Instagram?
I haven't thought about it. I mean, sometimes it's just, recently he's just been he's been resonating with me he's always had a place with me, but recently within the last year or two, I said, man, it'd be kind of cool that James Bond, I don't know, it's been sitting with me. So if something come up, man.
Don't ignore that, London. Don't ignore that. Don't ignore the power of our ancestors. Don't ignore them. Maybe his spirit is tapping you in some way. Don't undercut that.
I've been manifesting it, and I've been working on him. His mannerisms and his voice and everything. I said, man, it may be something there. I don't even know why, but it's been resonating with me. So I'm going to definitely manifest that and see what comes around with that whole thing. I don't know what the involvement is, if it's me playing him or if it's I don't know, whatever that is. I got to tap into that some more, but I know something's there.
Well, you know what? I'm going to DM you every couple of months and be like, what's going on with Baldwin? What's going on with Baldwin? I'm going to be the one to be your accountability person in that. I would love to see you come to life as Baldwin, or see Baldwin come to life, in your instrument as an actor. That would be outstanding. And having the right director attached to it.
Right.
Something for the culture, London. When I think about, some of the greatest icons of our time, we just talked about James Baldwin. You're from Los Angeles. You're from South Central LA. The late John Daniel Singleton, one of the greatest directors to ever walk this planet, the youngest person and first African-American, nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director and Best Adapted Screenplay for Boys in the Hood. When you think about John's legacy and the impact that he's had on the culture, what does his career mean to you and for you, as an actor? And an actor being from South Central, when the backdrop for everything John Singleton is LA, for the most part, in his work.
I remember when I went to, this is back in the 90s, I remember going to go see Boys in the Hood. And I remember there was a scene where Trey, Cuba's character, gets pulled over, I think, with Morris Chestnut's character, with Ricky, and they're off of Crenshaw. And I remember there's a scene between the cop and he's making them, lay on the hood. And I remember seeing the tear fall from Cuba's eye from being a black man, being pulled over, and the frustrations of dealing with the cops. And that scene, at the time, I didn't know anything about acting like that, but I just remember that scene resonating with me. And so from that idea and connecting to John Singleton, I think that it definitely had an impact on me because, one, the movie is based on where I'm from. I'm familiar with those streets in the area. And it just made me feel like, I wanted to tap into this thing called acting, but I didn't know what it was. And I felt like John did a great job at capturing the essence, the energy, the language the fabric of what it is to grow up in South Central, especially in the 90s. And fast forwarding, the movie is still hits home with me because I lost my brother actually today, 5 years ago,
Oh
in
my
the
gosh,
same way that Ricky did. Ricky was an athlete on his way on a college scholarship, and my brother was in college, and he came back down to try out for one of the Laker teams, and he was shot in Watts on a weekend while he was visiting.
my
Like I said
God.
today, and so even when I watched Boys in the Hood today, what he was able to capture, I was like, man, cinematically, I just thought that I would hopefully make one. I would like to be able to be in a project that is a classic like that, but also work with a director that understands what it is that really, because sometimes you work with directors and they're so busy, just the only one to do is focus on the shot. You know what I mean? And they're not really focused on what's going on in the scene. But I feel like John Singleton had a great way of being able to connect with actors so that he could pull, not only work behind the camera, but able to pull things from the actors so that they convey the screen as well. So, with what he's done, I hope that I get a chance to work with somebody even kind of like him to make a classic like that, man. And it's unfortunate I get a chance to work with him, man, but I would have really been able to appreciate that. So right now I just study his work, man. That's the main thing.
You know what, John would appreciate you saying that. I mean, he left such a big and powerful legacy, not just for, those of us who live and work in the Hollywood space, but the men and women and children who sit at home in their living rooms and consume that story, or consume any story that he's told. This year has been a difficult year. We have this global health crisis. We're losing so many people. It's like my deepest condolences to the loss of your brother who passed away. And you're saying this was the anniversary of his death. We also lost Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah. Kobe Bryant, we lost a lot. We lost some.
Yeah. So London, how do you stay? You mentioned earlier that you were very clandestine and that, very reserved in how you move. When you're in those moments and you are feeling anxious and you are feeling uncertain, how do you maintain your spirit of peace? What do you do to decompress, and how can you encourage others, to really focus on their being and not so much of listening to everything that's going on in the outside world, because it can disrupt your peace.
Yeah, I think it is a practice to quiet the noise, and I think part of doing that is one of the ways is just being very, very focused on what it is I want. So by being very focused, it allows you to negate things that aren't necessarily progressive towards what it is you want to do. So that's one of the ways, being very focused. The other way is also I spend a lot of time giving too.
Ooh.
I realized that I've been doing this for a while, but as far as the undergird of where it functions from is this, which is I realized that giving is a good way to keep your heart in check, right?
Wow.
So I have a lot of friends who feel like because of the trajectory of my career, and I feel like my career is barely just scratching the surface. Like I was fortunate enough to land a solid network like HBO and be a lead on there, and so now I get to just live strictly off the art. So that in itself is I'm just glad to be just living off the art, and not like I'm doing art as a side gig. So that in itself, but
that's amazing. That's the dream.
Right?
That's the dream, London.
But now what I have to do to make sure that I don't get caught up in these ephemeral ideas of success is to make sure that I'm giving all the time. Because when you give, like, it reminds you that it's not about you on so many different levels and then also what we give, how we give, because we all have probably been at a stoplight we see homeless people and we give them whatever money's in the ashtray. But can you go in your closet, or can you, when you think to give, what's the quality of which we give? Like, it's easy to get rid of the things that we don't want, but can you, if someone says, yo, man, I really need whatever it is, and you have that, can you give them some things that still got a tag on it, or can you give them not only leftovers, can
Wow.
you know what I mean?
Give
Some
in
real,
abundance. Yeah.
and
Give in
so it's not even
abundance.
about even like tangible things. But the other day I do photography, so I photographed one of my comedian friends, and the few people that I have shot, some of them have been fortunate enough to book, and I feel a part of, or I'm glad to be a part of someone else's success, because when you help other people succeed, it only speeds up your own. So not that we do it for that, but that's just one of those things that innately comes with it. So
Yeah,
I try
it's
to
a principle. It's about collective work and responsibility, London. You got it.
So I try to do those things to just keep myself very, very focused. And then also, I'm just not a guy who's concerned about what other people got going on. I heard someone say, I'm just too flawed to be flossy.
Everything is everything, right? Everything is everything.
And that really just, I got so much work to do on myself that the last thing I have time to do is tear anybody else down or be concerned with what anybody else is doing. Because I got a lot of work to do on myself for where I see myself. So I'm like I said, I'm glad to be working and those kinds of things, but I still got films. I got more TV shows to do. I got more films to make. I still pay, rent for a couple people. I mean, it's not about me. You know what I mean? Right now, London is cool. I got my little place, my car, I got food. I ain't had to worry about food in the past, 7 years or something. I've been okay. You know what I mean? At one point, worrying about food was a real, but now everything I'm doing is so that I can help other people. London is cool. I'm fine. But I just try to make sure that I put myself in a position so that, I can really help other people, because I understand what it's like to need help. I know what it's like when I couldn't pay a phone bill and stand and flip. I wasn't out there long enough to learn how to flip the sign, but I used to hold one of the little arrow cardboard signs.
Oh, wow.
I was telling the story the other day on my Instagram. I was like, I was in my 20s or something. I couldn't pay a phone bill that was like $70, $80, and I held the little sign for a day. I remember before I landed Ballers, I had $28 in my account. It was my brokest year. I was so broke. All my stuff was in my mother's garage. So I know people just see Ballers and they just think, oh, it just happened.
Yeah.
But it's a process, man. I try to make sure that I encourage other people and help other people get to their success, because I know what that feels like, So I didn't mean to be so vociferous about those things, but I'm just very passionate about trying to, hopefully, when someone sees it, they be like, oh, cool, man, I feel that way. I connect with that. And hopefully they'll be inspired to, do something with themselves and keep pushing.
You know what, London, that was amazing. That was amazing. And I'm glad that you felt comfortable here in the space with me to even communicate that. Sometimes certain points need to be elaborated on. So I don't have much time. I just want to say thank you so much. You're a wonderful talent. You're a wonderful actor, a great comedian, and the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. Thank you so much, London.
Thank